Well, hello, my darlings, and welcome or welcome back to the podcast, All the Things with me, your host, Amanda Pretch, where we talk about all things radical self leadership, relentless personal growth with a sprinkle of magic, of course. And it has been quite some time. I've had an awful lot going on since episode 1, so I do apologize for the delay, but we are now on episode 2. So, I also had to kind of do a little bit of thinking before I dove in a little further and got episode 2 ready because I had to really think back. In episode 1, we talked about radical self leadership. And what is radical self leadership and what does that look like and how do we emulate that? But I had to stop myself because what I realized I was missing was a critical framework that I use around my radical self leadership, around my personal growth and development. And that's something that's very important to share with all of you before we move any further forward with this. So we need to back up and we need to talk about my girl B. Yes, just like B. Arthur from the Golden Girls, BEA, which stands for belief, energetics, and action. So, this is a framework that I realized I have been using. hmm, I've been thinking about this and I can't even remember when I started doing this, but I honestly, for as long as I can remember, this is really something that I have followed. And we're going to kind of go at a higher level today because we will talk about this more in depth further on. But today I want to give you the foundational framework. This is also something that you'll be able to instantly apply in any area of your life because I truly believe that this framework is broadly applicable to anyone, anywhere, for anything that you can use it for. So, we're going to talk about it from a higher level. We will obviously dive further into it down the road, but I wanted to get started with this because I think it's important that you understand and you also have something that you can take away and you can use, today. So I hate to sit here and sound corporate and say, it's very fluid, but the fact of the matter is, it is. It is fluid. It is something that you can go back and forth between steps on so that you can tweak and reflect and reassess and reevaluate, right? All those beautiful R words that we love here as well. So, again, this is really a foundation. And let's talk about it today from the perspective of you have a task that you have to accomplish, right? And you're looking at this task, and the first thing that you need to do is you need to start with an assessment of your beliefs. Now, as Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you're right. And how true is that? If you believe you can do something, you're going to do it. If you believe you can't do something, you're not going to do it. So, the first thing that we need to do is we need to stop and we need to assess our beliefs. What is it that I believe about this task? Do I believe that I can accomplish it? Or do I doubt myself? Do I think it's really not something that I'm going to be able to achieve? Why? Why do I have the belief that I have? Especially if you think you can't do something, why do you believe that? If you believe you can, I don't really think that it's necessary to dive into the why you believe you can. That's great. Let's move forward with that, right? But if you believe that there's something that you cannot do, you need to really look into the why. We always need to ask why. That's super important. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to look at our energetics. Now, usually, if you think that you can do something, you probably are going to feel pretty excited about it, right? Like happy, you're ready to start, things feel good. If you can't, you might notice in your body that it feels, not so great. Maybe you really think that you can't do something and you have a lot of anxiety about it, right? Maybe you're feeling that in your chest or in your stomach, or maybe you know, you think, maybe I can do this, but it still feels funny in your body, right? Either way, no matter what it is, whether you can or you can't, you want to take a moment and you want to see, where is this energy sitting in my body? And how can I work on this belief now? And then reflect it back in my energy, right? Because we bring our energy to every single thing that we do. So it's very important to be very mindful of that energy. Yeah. So once you assess your belief and then you assess your energetics, it is time to take action, right? Action is the forward momentum. Action is the only way that we get things done. Action is the only way we get things done. You can't just sit there and wish something into existence. You need to then take action. And it's just that simple. Take action and then assess. Did you accomplish the task? Was it how you wanted to accomplish the task? Is there something that you could do better next time? We'll talk about this too, but I have my 2 favorite questions, I call them, that I use just about every day because I think it's very important that we do a daily self-reflection. What's going well and what could I be doing better? So you want to apply these here. You take your action and assess your outcome. Then you can go back and you can start the cycle again, right? And I think when we talk about action, it's also important here that we bring in failure because failure is the flavor of success. Yeah, I want you to think about that for a second. Failure is the flavor of success. Failure is a part of life. We all deal with failure differently. And fair, okay. But I think it's really important that we take a moment and we realize that there's a lot of things that wouldn't be if we didn't try and fail, right? Or maybe they wouldn't be as good as they could be if we didn't try again. Well, that's a lot to think about. I think that when we are looking at our self-leadership and we are looking at our growth and development, we need to not only be willing to fail, right? We want to take action and we want to prepare and we want to do what we can to be successful, obviously. But when we fail, because we will, we need to realize that that's okay. But now what can we learn? What lessons can we learn from that failure? And how can we do better the next time? What adjustments can we make or do we need to make? What did we see when we did something the first time around, right? Even if you were, let's say, successful, okay, maybe not as successful as you wanted to be, but let's say you go through your belief energetics, you take your action and you are successful, but maybe it's not as much of a success as you wanted. Now, how can you use that to flavor your future success? Use that reflection to flavor your future success because we can always strive to be doing better. As you know, I'm a huge John Maxwell fan, and I am almost through reading Developing the Leader Within 2.0. And he talks about how oftentimes, and I've watched this happen throughout my career in nursing, and I'm sure some of you can probably relate to this. If you work somewhere and you're looking at metrics and how well you do on things, are you looking at those metrics from the perspective of, hey, look at how well we did and we need to keep doing this well? Are you benchmarking against your past, right? Or are you benchmarking against your potential, your future potential that you have, right? The past is the past. Okay, we did good. How can we do better, right? How can we continue to improve? How can we continue to thrive? How can we continue to flavor our success? Yes, we need to learn from the past. We need to learn from our failures. We need to learn from our mistakes so that they can flavor our future successes. But we don't want to let that be the only thing that we're looking at. We need to look forward, not just backward, right? Multidirectional, multidimensional. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to apply this framework to something in your life. Big or small, whatever it is, I want you to take this framework of belief, energetics, and action and apply it to something in your life, and then let me know how it goes. Leave me a comment, send me an email, send me a message. Let me know if you found this helpful because personally, I have found this massively helpful for so many things in my life. And that is why we are here sharing, and hopefully you can find it helpful for something in your life as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 2 of All the Things. I will see you next time. Bye.